Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the Gotta Pop podcast. My name is Buddy Gott, and joining me today is a return guest to the show, and that is my friend Dave Legates. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Love being here. It's my favorite podcast of all.
Ah, well, thank you. The check is in the mail. You'll be getting that soon. Yeah.
What a wonderful situation.
But as I said, Dave has been on the show before. This is probably your fourth time, I think, on.
Fourth time.
I know we
Fourth time.
talked about Daryl Hall and John Oates twice, and then we did a show related to Christmas music.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I enjoyed all of them,
I
and
enjoyed that. Yeah.
yeah, and for those who don't know about the Daryl Hall and John Oates shows that we did, we we did two, and we focused on the first 2 decades that Daryl and John were a duo, and that was the 1970s and the 1980s, which was, financially and I guess commercially, however you want to look at it, their most successful period. They had so many hit songs in both decades, and we'd been talking about doing a follow up. I know we were gonna maybe do one about their later music, the stuff they did in the 90s and in the early 21st century, but that didn't happen. And now, boy, things have changed since we last did a show, haven't they, Dave?
Mom and dad got divorced. I mean, that's
That's a perfect way to put it. That is a
that's to
perfect way.
me, that's what it is. I think I was more distraught over the guys breaking up than I think I was over my parents breaking up. I mean, it was that devastating an event to me. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
And it's so funny you
eh,
say that because I started to write an article about their new albums, and which we're going to be touching on today. But I had said pretty much the same thing. As I was saying that in some ways I felt a little mad at both of them, much like a child would be mad at their parents for breaking up.
yeah, no, very much so. I mean, mostly because there was the animosity that you almost feel like didn't have to happen, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that was kind of a big part of it, and but it's a difficult situation. The upside to it all is that there does appear to be some sort of settlement in the works where I think the guys are starting to a little bit more now see the other one's side a little bit differently. And they have reached an agreement, or they are reaching an agreement of some kind. And I think that both guys have now admitted a certain degree of respect for each other, which is great.
Yeah, I've seen that
And
too.
I'm pleased to see that things are kind of headed in that direction. And now that they're going to go their separate ways and they're going to make new music and do what they want to do, we have all new things to enjoy, I hope. And so that's
Yeah,
kind of,
exactly. And,
yeah.
and folks, if you don't know the whole story about the breakup, and Dave and I said we don't really want to go too far down that road. It's been pretty well documented. It happened towards the end of 2023. And yeah, like I said, I'm not going to go too into that because we don't know the whole story anyway. You hear little bit.
Right. A lot of it would be speculation, I
Yeah,
think. I mean,
exactly.
part of it would be. I mean, there's definitely, the thing you could say about it is that if anybody who enters into a partnership agreement at 20 years old, okay, and thinks that it's going to be totally relevant when you're 75, 76 years old, well, chances are really good it's not going to be.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of think they've reached. And that
Yeah.
was, a big part of it right there.
Exactly. And like in addition to what you had already said about there maybe being some sort of, agreements related to the things that, did kind of tear them apart. We've both seen interviews with each of them where they are wishing each other well with things. And they both seem pretty happy that they now maybe have an artistic freedom that they didn't have before. You and I had both seen an article. We read an article featured on Daryl Hall. Let me try to say that a little more clearly. It was centered on Daryl Hall and the release of his new album, D, which just came out last week. But in it, he was saying that he's pretty much felt like a solo artist for a long, long time. Though he always approached his music, even with Hall and Oates, like
I don't know. I think he
I don't
says
know how
that.
I feel
I
about.
don't know how I feel about that. I think he says a lot of things to make himself feel better, but
Now,
and
I
I
can.
think he was just always kind of felt like John was part of his backing band all along, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But he, whether he admits to an emotional attachment to the partnership or not, because he says he was never emotionally attached to it. He was. I
Yeah,
mean, this guy wasn't killing himself through the 80s, okay, as
yeah.
much as he was for something he wasn't attached to.
Exactly.
Okay. I
And
mean,
I can say the same thing about John too. I've seen some
mhm.
things in interviews with him where he was like, we weren't exactly a duo. We just happened to be two musicians working together.
I
And
don't know
I've
how
seen,
that works.
yeah, I know you've probably seen him say the same kind of
Yeah,
thing. They both have.
yeah,
But he'll be like, well, see, it was Daryl Hall and John, it was Daryl Hall and John Oates. We weren't,
right.
we were never officially Hall and Oates. And well, anyway,
No,
again, but I wish them well, and they seem to wish
me
each
too.
other well. And
Yeah,
one last thing about that, I saw an interview with John where he said that he's been really happy even with this new tour that he started to support his album, where there is a sense of freedom knowing that he can focus on this and not have to worry about in 2 weeks hopping on stage to sing Maneater again. And
yeah.
he wasn't slamming Maneater, but I think he just
No,
liked that he didn't have to do that.
yeah. Well, he was the one who asked out of the relationship. I
Yeah.
mean, that seemed to be what was the main part of it, was that he was kind of tired of doing that over and over again. And if you've seen any of the set lists for Daryl's concerts, it looks like a Hall and Oates show.
See,
Plug
I
in a
haven't. I was
few,
curious about that.
yeah, which plug, maybe some solo things. And so far, only one song of his new album, which is kind of disappointing because I'd love to hear some more of those songs live. But
Yeah, me too.
yeah, there's so right now a lot of the shows on his end appear to be very laden with Hall and Oates work, whereas John's shows are pretty exclusively his new work, and an occasional plug-in of an old song of some kind, and that's about it.
Wow. And I'm really actually kind of happy to hear that about Daryl because I had seen Daryl in concert about 20 years ago. At that point, he was touring, I guess, in a way to support the Can't Stop Dreaming album, which it had come out in the late 90s just in Japan. And then it was finally released worldwide in, I think,
Right.
2003, I believe, something
Yep.
like that. And that's when I saw him. And at that time, it was all solo songs that he did. He only did
Yeah.
one Hall and Oates song. I think he did She's Gone. And I knew people, I had a friend that went to the same show. He wasn't like a diehard fan like you and I are. And he was
Right.
expecting to hear Hall and Oates songs or at least some Hall and Oates songs. And as a fan, he was disappointed in that. And I can see how, that could happen. But so I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
Daryl's mixing it up
I
some.
agree with yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that you go and yeah, but I think the problem with solo albums and everybody has an expectation that they're going to hear the continuation of what they've been hearing for 50 years.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that, and that's all
No.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that they've got, it's like John said, that what they did together was create an exclusive sound. Okay, that it was a sound that came out of the combination of their two major influences of life. Okay. And whereas separately, they have their own thing they do. And that's okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because we kind of like both worlds really. And that's a good thing. So, you
Exactly.
just have to put the Hall and Oates thing kind of in a box and realize that that was a separate world. It was a separate entity kind of
Yeah.
all to itself. And it should stay that way.
Yeah, exactly. And even though, we both started off, partly joking about, seeming like it was our parents that broke up. On one hand, I'm not that devastated because it's been a long time since they put out music together.
They
It's
haven't done anything
no, they
really. I
haven't done
mean,
anything. Daryl, in that story that you and I both read, Daryl had said that he and John hadn't written a song together in over 20 years. I think the last
yeah.
one that they did was one of the few new songs that were on Our Kind of Soul album. That was the last thing
Or
that
either either one of the ones on our kind of soul, or maybe even one that goes back to Do It for Love.
Do
Who
It for
knows? I
Love.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and even on both of those and even the preceding albums, they were writing less and less together. I mean, and that had been the
yeah.
case for many years.
That
Even
had been the case for a while. In
yeah,
fact, they were seeking, as one of the things that if we had ever gotten to a 90s show that I kind of, was definitely going to bring up, is that, one of the hard things that I think they were going through is they were very isolated through the years of
yeah,
being stars. And one of the things about being a star is that when you have that level of isolation, you don't get that many experiences. You're home a lot, and
hmm
and so they were soliciting work from outside artists of some kind. Good work. I
yeah,
mean,
really
stuff
good
that
work.
was good stuff, but it was like stuff that really wasn't coming from them,
Yeah.
and part of the thing too is that Sarah and Jana were in the who Sarah Allen and Jana Allen, the sisters who Daryl was with Sarah for 30 years, and they were in the outside world, and they were having a life of their own in some ways, and they would come back to it and write songs. And one writer joked one time, you know it's hard to about Hall and Oates songs. It's hard to believe that grown men have these problems that they write about, that
Hmm.
that are in these songs. And then when you stop and think about it, it's like, well, maybe it's because two women are writing the words. I mean, so that could be part of it,
That could be. That
so
could be.
yeah.
I
So
just,
I really think that that was, all along they would started to drift away from being
I think
writers
so.
themselves. Yeah.
And actually,
So
one of my favorite songs on, you mentioned the "Do It for Love" album. That was the last full album of new material for them studio
mhm.
wise. Because the other one I mentioned was they had done a bunch of remakes, like sort of like more laid back acoustic remakes of stuff, even like Dan Hartman's like what is it? I Can Dream About
I could dream
You,
about you.
our
Changed all
kind
the
of stuff from
words.
the '60s. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But on the "Do It for Love" album, one of my favorite songs on there was one that neither one of them wrote because they had kind of branched out a little bit. And it was "Life's Too Short." You remember the
Life's too
song? It was by
short.
the Greg
Love
Alexander from
that song.
New
Yeah. No,
Radicals.
no, no.
Oh,
Great song was Someday We'll Know.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I love both of
Both good
those.
songs.
Yeah, both
Both
good
good
songs. Yeah, because
songs.
he wrote
Yeah.
that with I want to say Danielle Brisbois,
Danielle Brisbois. Yeah.
who was little Stephanie on All in the
Stephanie
Family,
from All in the Family. Yeah. Exactly.
who has
Yeah.
had a heck of a career as a
She sure
songwriter and
has.
producer.
She
She's
sure
done
has.
great. But
Indeed.
why don't we dive into these solo albums?
Yes,
Because
sir.
both of the guys since this breakup have released solo albums, actually both within the past month or so. The first one that came out was from Mr. John Oates, and that came out on May 17th, 2024, and it was called Reunion. This is
Mhm.
his sixth solo album, and to me, Dave, it might be his best one yet. I don't know how you feel about that.
I kind of favored Thousand Miles of Life as
Okay, that was a
my
good one.
favorite. It was a really good one. This one is really good. But what I like about this is that it almost kind of, and you could maybe see it this way. I don't know. It kind of comes across as like a concept album to me. It
Hmm.
seems like there's some commonality through the whole album of things that he puts together. Some similar themes that go on, and but what I love is that he really has dove into the Americana,
Yes.
thing, which, is not an easy thing to do. I mean, if you think about it, the Nashville world does not really like outsiders all that much,
No.
okay? And so if you enter their world, you they think you're making fun of them sometimes. Like if a rock or pop star comes into that world, they kind of think you're picking on them a little bit.
Hmm.
And John is serious, and it took some time for him to get the respect, I think, of that community, but he sure has gained it.
He has. He's lived down that area for a little while now, I believe. I don't know if he's still in
Hmm.
Aspen part time, and
Yeah, part-time. Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
yeah, he's been down there, and I know he's been working with multiple musicians. I don't know if you remember, I had did a short interview with John and another musician named Guthrie Trapp. They toured
I've got
together a
three
couple of
trap.
years ago, and he's a
Right.
heck of a
He really
museum
is.
musician.
Music.
Oh
Well, he might
my,
own a
I need
museum
more
for all you know.
caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a couple of those videos of their performances. They're great. I mean, together they sound perfect together.
Yeah, and I think John, was feeding off of musicians like Guthrie and others down in
Hmm.
Nashville. And like you said, I mean, he's been in the scene for a while, and
Hmm.
he's even put out. He did a live in Nashville album a few
Yes,
years
he
back
did.
too.
Yes, he did.
That
Yep.
is quite good. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think there is. Getting back to what you said about this maybe being at least in part a concept album, I can totally see what you're saying because it starts off with the title track "Reunion," which I had read a little bit about it that it was at least partly inspired by his 100-year-old father, who I think
Yes.
is now
Hmm.
101. I think
Right.
at one point he had alluded to, probably soon having a reunion with his late wife, and that was,
Right.
which is, of course, a sad thing to think about, but also, I don't know, it's the kind of thing couples do think about when they've lost the other, and
Sure, absolutely. I mean, and I mean, as I'm getting up into the years, yeah, you kind of, it's funny how your thoughts kind of wander into those directions, but they
Yeah.
start doing that.
Yeah, they do.
And yeah, and the thing is that yeah, it's mainly about that. It's mainly about John saying it's a reunion with himself too at the
Yeah,
same time. And it's a nice, I guess that's a good feeling that, no matter what age of life you're in, it's a good kind of thing that when you rediscover parts of yourself that maybe got away a long time ago, which is a beautiful thing.
it
And
is.
I respect him for being as as open and transparent in an album as he was, about this one, which is good. And he wrote this with AJ Croce, right? And is this
Yes, that's right.
yeah, which is really incredible that he got himself, a fabulous co-write. AJ is really good.
Yeah, I'm not
And
overly familiar with AJ. The little bit I've heard, though, I've been very impressed by.
yeah, yeah, he plays his dad's songs, but he it doesn't really sound like him all that much,
Hmm.
I don't think. But he plays his songs, differently but good. And you kind of wonder, makes you think it's like if Jim Croce were coming out today, would he'd be kind of Americana too, you
I would
know what
think
I
so.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so you kind of can see that relationship as having, definitely being fruitful in some way.
absolutely. That's the song that kicks off the. Oh, I just wanted to go back, tying back to like that whole theme we were discussing. One of the
Right.
last songs of the album is along the same lines. It's called "All I Am," and that's a
Yes.
good one too, where it's also very reflective on life and. Because I think it's the second. Well, I don't want to say second to last of the newer songs. Then there's some additional songs thrown on that he has
Right.
like coffee house
Yeah,
versions
and
and
that's
stuff.
not a new song apparently. That's apparently. I mean, it's new to the album. It's on the album now,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's a remix. It's a remix of something he did years ago, where he
Oh,
kind of
okay.
changed it up a little
I
bit.
did
But I
not know
guess it's
that.
something he
Okay,
has done.
interesting.
Yeah, he did that years ago, but he updated it. I
Oh,
like this
okay.
version better, actually. To be honest with you, I
Yeah.
think this version's really good.
There are several things like that actually on this album where
Mhm.
there's a total of 12 songs. I mean, I think there's only, as far as I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dave, but I don't think there's actually a CD version or a vinyl version of this. I think it's just a digital from all I've been able
haven't
to see.
haven't seen it, and
Yeah.
the final three weren't on every collection, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think I counted for 9 or 10 songs, but
Oh,
but there
okay.
were there were a couple that were add-ons at the end, I think, or
Yeah.
what have you, or later releases from the original release.
Gotcha, gotcha. But
So yeah,
yeah, there's some good stuff on here. You mentioned the first song, "Reunion," AJ
yeah,
Croce, and then the next song is a cover of a song that I'm not familiar with. I know the name of this artist. I've heard of him because he was a legend, John Prine. A
yeah.
song called
Long
Long
Monday,
Monday," and
yeah,
I like that one
yeah.
quite a bit.
It's good. Yeah, it's a good, and when it's a smart move on John's part, because when you cover John Prine, you'll make friends real quick in that area of the world. You know what I mean? John Prine's a legend
Hmm.
in that world. And so the fact is that he picked a good one. It's a danceable, slow dance kind of song, nice interpretation of it. I went back and listened to the John version of it,
I did
and
too.
yeah, and it was and John Oates did it justice. I mean, it was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, he did a great version of that.
Yeah,
Like I said, I had never heard the original until just until after hearing John Oates' version several times. But yeah,
yeah,
I think John did a great version. And
yep.
after that is actually I believe a brand new song for this album, which I like quite a bit, called "Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee."
Interesting song.
It
I mean,
is.
yeah, it's an interesting song. I went and did a little research on
Oh
Sonny
yeah.
Terry and Brownie McGee, and this is poignancy in its finest. I mean, it's kind of like Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee were a blues duo
Oh,
from long ago.
how about that?
Separately they were okay. Together they were better. Okay. Now you see where we're headed here. Now,
Yeah,
okay. Now the thing about Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee supposedly, and then John tells the story of it on stage at some point too. But I also did a little reading up on them. Is that they both had their own handicaps, and you know think one was blind, one couldn't walk well or whatever.
oh,
There
okay.
was there was they definitely had physical handicaps of some kind. and they did not, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee did not like each other
Oh,
personally,
wow.
okay, at all. But they needed each other because their act was so popular. And so they constantly were having to help the other one through the shows and get on stage and make sure that the show went off okay because they were extremely reliant on the other for a lot of
Oh,
years. And so this was how they got through their act. And this is kind of, I guess, what the song is sort of about,
wow.
where John tells the story of the two of them and how they had this dependency based, that had to do with their making their living. Because blues musicians, there's no residuals, there's no back in the day.
No, not
They,
back then.
you know, they
They could
lived,
barely get
yeah,
by.
right. They lived on from song to song, from show to show, and they had to do what they had to do to make a living. And that's what they had to do, was get each other through a show and do good work together and do the songs they were known for, which was great. And I'm thinking here, I'm listening to this story and I'm saying to myself, geez, where does this sound familiar? I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah,
familiarity to this,
there
and
sure is. There
yeah,
sure is.
and so I kind of see maybe whether or not this is on purpose or not. Uh, and you can see where John kind of went with this one.
Yeah, and it might have been the most subliminal thing in the world, because
For all we know,
yeah, yeah, because there are things that affect us sometimes without us even really realizing how deeply they affect us, and
for
maybe
all we
there
know,
were
right?
things that were much on his mind as he was working on this.
Could
Um,
be.
and one of the things that I liked listening to that song was it reminded me in a lot of ways, even though it's quite different. It reminded me a lot of ways of the John Oates songs that were done on the first couple of Hall and Oates albums, where John was his songs were they were acoustic leaning. He was telling stories in many of his, maybe more so than he did later on when it was more about. I don't want to dismiss anything and say it was more about the pop stuff later because it wasn't. John always has been a very talented songwriter, but
Right.
some of the stuff on Whole Oats and Abandoned Luncheonette was much different than the Oates stuff that came later, much different than Africa or Italian Girls. And he was more of like the storyteller that was
Even
very
if you look at
popular back in that time period.
yeah, even if you look at feng shui, I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
night and day.
yeah,
But the truth is that, yeah, you hit it. I mean, this album sounds very much what could have come off of Polo Oates back
yeah.
in the day. I
That's what
mean,
I was thinking too.
yeah, it's, you hit it out.
Yeah, if they broke
Um,
up in like 1972, 1973, he could have
and
gone on.
froze this in time. This would have been
Yeah,
just, it would have been
yeah.
status quo for him. Yeah, without a
Hmm.
doubt. I agree.
And one of the we might as well just go through all the songs. The next song on there
Sure.
is called "I Found Love" remix, which was actually on the Thousand Miles
1,000 Miles of Life. Yep.
of Life. Yeah, I like this version. They're pretty close, but I like this one a little more, I'd say.
I do too. This kind of has like a back porch on a hot day feel to it. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? That you could sit on back and strum it and sing along, with it a little bit. And yeah, this is a good update of that song. I really liked it. Had a little more tempo to it. It was good.
yeah,
You know?
I like it
Yeah.
too. And then another one is "This Field Is Mine," and I don't know if this was on
Yeah.
any of his studio albums, but there is a live version on the Live in Nashville from 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, but I like that song too. There's really nothing on here I dislike.
No, this field is mine. Kind of, if you listen to it real close, I mean, it could have been, maybe just my ears, who knows? But it kind of gave me like a feel of Wanted Dead or Alive, the Bon
Oh,
Jovi
yeah.
song. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That it had like that feel to it at certain points, you know what I mean? And that was good. I mean, if it to me, it brought the song to life a little bit more for me, I liked
Yeah.
that. It was good.
And I may be wrong, but I want to say that that was inspired, at least in part, from his in-laws. I think his wife's parents were farmers, and I think that would have been.
Yes, there was, yeah,
Yeah.
which is why MA is, very outdoorsy and farmy, like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's been a big part of her life, and that's why, she always wanted like homes in the woods and near animals and stuff. And so, John's an outdoorsy guy himself,
Yeah.
so I'm
Sure
sure
he is.
there's a lot to that was part about her family, I'm
Uh,
sure.
And what is her name again?
And I get, well, it's Aimee. I think they say it M-A.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that's one of those ones that could be said a couple
It
different
could be said
ways.
Amy, right?
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
else, it could be simplified, but I think the couple of times I've heard it, it has
I
been
think I
said
think you're
M-A.
right. I remember in
Yeah,
an interview hearing that.
yeah,
Another one, the one that comes after that is "All I Ask of You," which
yeah.
I think is a new one for this album.
I think
Uh,
it's a bit of a love letter. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it comes kind of across as a love letter. Um, what I like about it is that you really feel that pedal of steel effect in the
Mm-hmm.
it's really resonating in that. And you if you master that pedal of steel, you'll make friends in Nashville real fast.
Yes. Yeah.
And he seems to have that down now, you know what I mean? Where it's like he knows where to apply it into the songs and whatever. It's like, good call on those, to put that in there because I love Pedal of Steel
Yeah.
as part of songs. I remember listening like in Jimmy Buffett songs through the years that was a very prominent sound.
Yes.
And
Definitely.
yeah, and so people think Buffett couldn't write a good song. Hey, he wrote good songs. Okay,
Yeah,
those songs were
yeah.
good.
I'm not the biggest Buffett fan in the world, but the
Yeah,
stuff I've heard, I mean, it's more than just Cheeseburger in Paradise and
yeah,
Margaritaville. You know,
yeah. I became kind of I'm not going to say I was a parrot head by any means, but I certainly got very immersed in Buffett for a few years, and had his station on a lot and things like that.
nice.
And yeah, and you got that pedal. I mean, a lot of the songs off of that were John Oates would be on Margarita. I'm sure he probably is on Margaritaville now
Right.
more than we know. I never listened to it anymore, but I'm sure that he's on there now because I think the station is still going.
Yeah, I believe
Um,
it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that pedal of steel sound is a big part of Jimmy's songs.
Yeah, and like you said, the pedal steel, and just the music in general on this is really good. And one of the
Yeah,
things that I miss about, not having sometimes the physical copies of albums is not seeing all the musicians because you
yeah,
can't access
yeah.
that
I
as
know.
easily sometimes with the digital stuff. And
Man, remember the day with the album in your hand and you like read it to death, and you devoured all the stuff on the sleeve, I mean, by the end of the first 3 days, you knew it as good as the songs. I mean, it was
exactly.
I
And
know.
I'm sure there's going to be somebody or several people who think, okay, well, you need to go out and buy the physical copies. I'm like, and no, I don't.
No, no,
There's
I
reasons I
know.
pay,
No, look, we may be up there, but we're pretty, digitally crackerjack. I'm
yeah,
telling you. I mean, we
exactly,
don't need we
exactly.
don't need to go buy the physical
Yeah,
copy
exactly,
for sure.
exactly. I
Yeah,
pay for my Spotify and other things, so that
there you go. Right.
so
Why you got to pay for it twice? You shouldn't have to.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So another one, the next one is Dance Hall Girls, which I like, but maybe one of my least favorite on the album. It's still
Was
good
ve-
though.
I was very confused by this song. It was confusing to me. I mean, I really didn't understand it completely. The bridge is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The guitar, bridge guitar, it was awesome. I didn't know what to make of the song. I really didn't. I was a little confused by it. And so yeah, I don't think it was really my favorite. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, I left it with kind of just a distaste for Baltimore, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was when I got out of it. That Baltimore was a pretty horrible place, and
And-
it's like, I thought that like if the lyrics, had a better feel to it, this probably could have been a much better song in some way.
yeah,
It
I
was
think so
it was
too.
sort of depressing in a way. And I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
felt
there's
about it.
another one too. I kind of feel the same about, and that well, we had mentioned the next song is "All I Am," which we mentioned earlier, which is
Yeah, well, I am. Yeah,
very reflective. I saw some interview with John where he said he had been looking at his own life, where he was in his life right now, and I don't. For those who don't know, I mean, these guys might be a little older than you think. And John recently turned 77, and Daryl
yeah.
was seven. I'm sorry, no, I apologize. John recently turned 76, and Daryl was seven.
76. There
Yeah,
is
and Daryl
76.
is currently 77. So
Yeah.
that is a point in your life where you reflect on things and you maybe think of where you
Yeah, I
want to
don't
get
know. I hope to
next. And
get there, but I mean, to figure out, but I mean,
I
I'm a
know you're
very
like
big,
40, 50 years off from that, Dave, but
yeah, at least. Nah, you get pretty. I've always been an old reflective person. I think
Yeah,
my
I
whole
kind of have
life. You know
to.
what I mean? Yeah, you have too. Yeah,
Yeah.
we both live in the past for sure. And but that's the way we both are. But that's why I think we're friends. But yeah, this is the older you get, definitely the more
Yeah.
experiences you have to reflect upon. And it's like now your mind runs all day with experiences
Yeah.
that just, and I don't know how I'll feel at 76, but
Yeah. But
hopefully I have a few more.
but having said, I don't want to give the impression that it's a somber song. It's
No,
no, it's
no,
I think it's a good song.
yeah.
What I was starting to say before was that the next song I like, but it's another one that I'm not in love with, and that's when Carolina comes home again. I don't know. I think maybe if it had been earlier in the album, I might like it more. I don't know if how it is as like the closer for the new songs.
Kind of agree with you. I there's components of it I really like. I mean,
Hmm.
the guitar, his guitar on it's
The
really good,
music is
and
good.
the music's good. And I mean, it's like it construct. To me, it was kind of like he learned like a layered song construction, like Arif Mardin used to do.
Oh yeah.
And so it was kind of like it felt to me like he took something from the past that he learned and applied it to this, and that
Hmm.
seems like it had like that almost layered effect like Laughing Boy kind of had
Oh
back in the
yeah,
day,
yeah,
you know. And his singing on it is really good. I mean, his
yeah.
voice on it is probably his best vocal of the album, I
I
think.
think
But
yeah, I can hear that.
yeah, but the song itself is not the best song. I mean, it's not definitely not one of my favorites. I think one of the things that this album genuinely could have used, and here I am, not going to criticize John Oates, but because he's John Oates, they know way more than I do. But the truth
Yeah, but
is
we're their
that
listeners, so I
but we're
mean,
their listeners. We know what we like to hear, right?
yeah.
And one of the things I think this is missing is that really cohesive song,
Hmm.
that song that brings this album together, the one that you got to take with you and walk away with and say, yeah, you be singing it to yourself all day or whatever. I don't
Yeah,
really get that here, okay? And
yeah. I
you
think
know, if he had just like taken Keep Pushing a Rock, like from the EP earlier this year, which is also not a new song, but if he applied it into this album, and somebody would have said, that fits, and you could have had that as the anchor song to this album, and have that to take away, because that song is fantastic.
what is it called? I'm not sure I know
Keep
that.
keep pushing a rock uphill.
Okay, he put that out
Up
as a single or a
as a
EP.
single, the EP single, the end of last year, I believe, right around the time of the breakup started, I believe.
Okay,
And it's a song, it's an earlier song, but he definitely put a better spin on it. And it's an incredibly good song. It's a good sing along kind of song. And if he just put that to this, and added it somewhere in the middle of it, I suppose, then I think it would have been something to kind of take with you from it.
yeah, I can totally see what you're saying. Well, I'm sure at a point where he doesn't care about having hits,
No,
and really, unfortunately, older artists like him and Daryl and so many others aren't going to be getting the play on radio,
no, no.
or
I
those,
mean,
or be on a Hot 100 anywhere.
well,
But
really,
having
what station would you play John on anyway?
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. Or you can say the same thing even about the last Stones album. They might get
true.
courtesy play on a rock station for a week or so, but then it's
Yeah.
not going to be something that's in like the new music rotation.
I think people got play of the Stones album only because they had the number one album and the Beatles had the number one song in the same
Wasn't
week
that
in
crazy?
2023. That was
I mean, that was just
fantastic,
mind
right?
blowing. That
Yeah,
was
that
so
was mind
cool.
blowing, right? And I think
But
that's the only reason anybody played anything off that Stones album.
yeah, I think you're right. It's actually not a. I'm not the biggest Stones
It's
fan. Well,
not
it's
a
a
bad
pretty
album. No,
no, it's pretty solid.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, but like going along with what you were saying, while it's not necessarily about hits, and it shouldn't be about hits.
No,
It did maybe need, I think, something else. You know, I
yeah,
enjoy it. There's, like I said,
yeah,
there's nothing
yeah.
I can honestly say there's nothing on here I dislike.
No,
There's some I certainly like more than others. Some that I might skip over once in a while, but
there's
nothing I
favorites and
dislike.
not so. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I'd say out of his six solo albums, I said at the beginning, I thought it might be his best. I think it's at least one of them. I think it's the one I can see myself maybe going back to more than I do some of the others. I don't really
Yeah,
return to a lot of his albums that much. You know, I might pull out a
no.
song here and there.
Do yeah, like I said, I do like Thousand Miles of Life. I
Yeah,
mean, I play that from time to time, you know. I mean, that's a good one. You know, and there was something about Feng Shui I really liked,
yeah,
okay,
there was some good stuff on there.
which is some good stuff on there, which is just to me was stuff that probably just we used to say back in the Hall and Oates group that was stuff that didn't get used in the Hall and Oates years, which I
Yeah,
suspect that that was the case quite a bit,
yeah, I
you
think
know.
so.
And but the Americana albums in between, he puts out, what he does is he puts out a good single here and there, and he makes you like that a lot. And
Yeah,
then, and I kind of like that. And this is where, last year my brother, was texting me the minute Keep Pushing a Rock came out, and he was like, "You got to hear this John song. It's amazing, right?" And it really is. And it's just kind of one of those things that you wish, hey, if this had gone on that album, people would have dove on it.
and it's a shame it's not included on the album. And I think
Yeah,
he also had put out a cover of "What a Wonderful World" in the past year or
yeah,
so. And I thought
yeah.
that I don't think I've heard it, but I saw that listed today on his singles, and I'm like, well, why not put that on here? Because
I could
we
hear his
mentioned,
voice doing it.
yeah. And what you had mentioned, and that there's some additional songs after the ones we mentioned that I don't know if you can even call them bonus tracks, but hey, there's a coffee house version of the song "Reunion," the title
Yeah,
cut,
right.
uh, and then there's a few different versions of some of his older songs, "Anytime" and "Arkansas,"
Yes.
which
And
are,
Arkansas is a good song.
yeah, it is a good song. It is a
Yeah,
good song. Now, one thing that's, gosh, I don't want to sound like I'm annoyed with John Oates, but one thing that kind of maybe annoys me a little bit is the fact that this is the third album in a row of his that song is on. So, because it was on this, it was on the Live in Nashville album,
guess he
and
likes
then it
it.
was also on Arkansas, obviously.
I guess he
And
likes it a lot.
I guess he does. And actually, the song "Anytime," it's the same case.
Yeah.
It was on both of those albums as well. And again, I know I'm being a little nitpicky there, but I'm just saying, I've already got versions of those songs, so why not give us one of the ones that we're talking about instead?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as time goes on and the musicians you work with change a little bit, what have you. I mean, let's face it, if you look at all the Daryl songs he does through basically from Live from Daryl's House and what have you. They're all updated versions of the classics, really.
True.
I mean, with all different spins on them all the time. So I guess as you change musicians, it's sometimes nice to take one of your favorite or two songs, or maybe six in John's case, and throw them in with the new with your new people you're working with, and you probably will get a whole different, ball of wax fruit. I mean,
Right.
it could be different completely.
And one thing I'm wondering too, having said all of that, and John, if you're watching or listening, don't be mad at me. I do love those songs, and also I wanted to say that like the version of "Anytime" that's on here, it's like, I guess, live from the, I don't know how, if I'm mispronouncing it, Dodorio sessions.
Hmm.
Like I said, that was on the Arkansas album. This is my favorite version of the song. Of the three versions that are out
Yeah.
there, I mean, the guitar playing in this is absolutely fantastic. I mean, John and his
Hmm.
band do a hell of a job. It's probably one of my favorites on the album, as
I
much as
like the
I'm
way
bitching about it.
I like the way his band is like, yeah, we're really not complaining about the sound, but I don't think we are.
Yeah.
But the truth is that I like the band the way he's got it set up. It kind of looks like they would be playing in Andy and Mayberry's living room. Now all they need is the
Oh
guy
yeah.
with the jug, okay, and they'd be all set. But the drummer is off, like sitting like parallel with them, and
Oh,
playing. He
nice.
has just two simple drums and a cymbal, and
Nice.
I like that. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Now that covers John Oates' album Reunion,
Yes,
and now
sir.
we are going to move to Mr. Daryl Hall's album, which is very new. It just came out on June 21st, and it's called D. Nice simple title there. This is
Apparently, it's
also.
his nickname. And he says people call him D a lot. He goes, all my friends call me D. He said, so that's what
Yeah,
I'm.
I thought I'd heard that on his show before, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is his sixth solo album. His have been a lot more spread out than John's solo albums because Daryl started doing solo albums back in well, gosh, it was 1980 when he was still with
Hmm.
Hall and Oates. He did his album called
Hmm.
Sacred Songs, and I'm just
Sacred
going to run through
songs.
his albums because I think they're all quite good.
Yep.
Next one after that was Three Hearts and the Happy Ending Machine, which
Amazing.
may be his most successful. Well, there's no may about it. I think that was his most
Well,
successful
he was in the
solo.
height of the stardom, yeah. So
Yeah.
it got sold a lot. Great
Yeah, that
album,
came
though.
out in '86. It had the hit song "Dreamtime" on it, which to me is one of my favorite Daryl Hall songs
Me
ever.
too.
Whether it's Daryl Hall or Daryl Hall and John Oates.
Yep.
"Soul Alone" came out in '93.
Hmm.
The aforementioned by me album "Can't Stop Dreaming," which
Hmm.
is one of my favorites by him, came out in '96. But then in Japan, then 2003 in America and the
2003 in the
UK.
States. Yep.
Yeah, and then "Laughing Down Crying" from 2011, I think is a good album.
It's really good.
It's
It's
really
really good.
good. That's one
Yeah.
that probably a lot of people don't know because, at that point, he was, one of those artists, like we said, maybe not getting a lot of airplay on the radio, but there's some good stuff on that album.
What I like about Daryl albums, and you get it's always a box of chocolates. Okay, you don't know what you're going to get completely.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
there's always something in there that's just all. They're kind of jumbled up something in there. But and this album is no exception. But what I loved about those solo albums in the middle there is, and it's my one of my favorite genres. Daryl always seems to have a couple of songs in the smooth jazz category.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, I always look forward to that part of his albums that, kind of can resonate to the smooth jazz
Yeah.
scene. And sooner or later you put on the SJ station and you'll hear him. I mean,
Yeah.
he shows up there. And Cab Driver
I was
I
just
think
going to mention that one.
almost went, I think it went number one SJ
Yeah, it
at
was
one
around the time
point.
that we got to know each other, right? 'Cause around
Exactly, right around the time we
2003 is
got to
when
know
that
each other,
re-release came
right?
out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I used to
And
hear that on the smooth jazz, and it's a
yeah,
good song.
and I waited, and then this album, and in D, I'm saying to myself, I don't care what you do here, Daryl, okay? Give me something from the SJ department, okay? Because that would warm my heart. And he didn't fail me.
Now he did it. He did it.
And that's and you know me, I can be critical of Daryl, okay? At
Yeah.
times, I
I
really
know we
can.
both can.
And yeah, and you know what? This album is the
We
bomb.
used to catch crap in that Hall and Oates group that we belonged
Yes, we
to.
did.
It was
Yes, we
for
did.
folks. It was a Yahoo group that I ran, but then we were in a second one too. But boy, if you were critical, some people just got on you. If you couldn't say anything bad about any songs. And Dave
Didn't
and I are nice.
want
We weren't
your
saying like things flat out sucked without giving like
no,
a
a
reason why
reason.
we didn't like it. Yeah,
Yeah, Daryl was magical to them. You couldn't say a bad word about Daryl name. And you know what? For a lot of years, I got to admit, don't tell nobody. I mean, he'll probably see this, but don't tell nobody. My little brother was the same way. You couldn't say nothing bad about Daryl at all. Okay. Now all of a sudden he's the first one to tell you he's an old lady. Okay. That's what he says about that. But he goes, he's grumpy. He goes, every time he knows he's on something, he's grumpy. And he goes, but for years and years, you couldn't say a negative word about Daryl Hall to my brother. Okay. And so there's a lot of people, there were a lot of people in that group. There were a lot of people in that group that we could not say a bad word about Daryl whatsoever. And we
yeah.
would get our heads bit off if we
I
did.
know it was really kind of crazy, and I know that's the case. It can be the case for a lot of artists and
Sure, I
musicians.
suppose. Yeah.
I remember almost getting beat up on my school bus because I said something bad about a Def Leppard song, and like this guy who wore a Def Leppard jacket every day just would not have it. But fans are devoted. I mean, that
Yeah, I
happens.
mean, if people only dedicated themselves to other causes, okay, quite the same way,
Yeah, exactly.
it'd be a whole lot better world, wouldn't it?
But now, one thing I have always, and will always give Daryl credit for that I don't think he maybe gets enough credit for is I think he has got one of the all-time top voices in pop music
And
history.
this album is no exception.
No
I mean,
exception. And I'll backtrack
how
just for a second and
great
say, you were right. John Oates sounded great on his new album. I think his
he
voice
did.
sounds
His
exceptional.
voice sounds good,
Yeah.
but
And Daryl's
John's voice
voice, I
sounds
think, I
really
think they both sound almost like they
blown
did 50 years
away.
ago. Yeah,
All day I was blown away. His voice and Daryl's voice in this is magnificent.
it is.
And
Absolutely. Well, let's make our way through the album. What do you think, Mr. Legates?
sure.
Why don't you start it off here?
Okay, the whole world's better. I mean, talk about like a Beatley kind of opening, okay? Which
Yeah.
that had Dave Stewart had put his producer on this, okay, Mr. Eurythmics,
And he
and
co-wrote every song
he
too.
co-wrote every song with him. And the thing is too is that he added that crowd noise to it to give it that effect because he wanted to come across. And this has like I don't know like a kind of a either an instant karma or some nobody told me there'd be days like these kind of
Yeah.
thing, but upbeat, but happy.
Yeah.
And this was just a fun, infectious,
It's
bouncy
so
song. It
catchy.
was like, right? And
Yeah.
the funny thing is that I heard a complaint from one listener who said, "Oh, he goes, we paid $14 for 30 minutes of music." Okay, look,
Oh,
I'm
come
gonna tell you, I'm
on.
gonna tell you, right? I'm old. And you know what? If you can wow me in 30 minutes or less,
Yeah.
okay, I'm a fan. All right.
Yeah.
And you
Absolutely.
know what? I mean, I'm not complaining about any of the duration of the length of time of this or anything like these songs are good, they're quick, they're bouncy, they got life
Yeah.
to them, and he's singing them great.
Yeah,
And
and like you said, it's a short album. It's 9 songs. I think it's
yep,
just not even 40 minutes long. It's a little short of
maybe.
that, but yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
maybe it's short. But I think it's like packed as perfectly as it can be in
It's
that short
about
amount of time.
quality, I
Yeah,
mean, to me.
but the whole world's
Uh,
better. What a great opener. I
what
know
a great
yeah,
opener. I
this came
mean,
out last Friday, and I was at the gym that morning, and I figured, okay, well, let me put this on. I'm just going to do a casual workout this day. I was on like the little stationary bike, and I was just puttering around, and that came on, and all of a sudden I found myself pedaling
yeah, it was
faster.
Friday
I was
afternoon.
almost
That was
singing
it.
along like on the first time I heard the song because it's got a very catchy chorus, and
Yeah.
it's maybe a little repetitive at the end, but I don't think it's the kind of thing that people would mind hearing
Don't
over and
care.
over again. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
It was Friday afternoon, when because that's the day it came out, right? It came out
Yeah.
Friday afternoon, I think. Friday morning. I was listening to it in the afternoon, and it was, Friday afternoon, you're sick of my patience by then and everything, and then I got this on and I'm listening to it, and I was like, yeah, I can see 4 or 5 more. Okay, I'm good. And
Yeah, it's
it
great.
it really put me in a good mood. It was a
Yeah,
good
it's a
song,
really an
really good
uplifting
song.
song.
Yeah.
I love it. And after, like I said, that was everything's co-written by Dave Stewart. That's the only song in there. There was an additional songwriter.
Yeah, and you know what? Some of these songs are old. I mean,
Oh, is that
that
right? I don't know the
he's
history of
had
that.
them around. Well, no, he's not. He never recorded them before. He never put them out. But he's had some of these songs hanging around for about 13 years, he
Oh,
said.
wow.
Because, like he said, he didn't do the whole album at once, and then of course, he went through the whole time with Live from Daryl's House, and then during that time, he went through his marital issues and everything, and went through that, and so he did this album in bits and
Wow.
pieces through the years, and so some of these songs have been around for quite a while, so there's no way of
Oh, I
telling
didn't
how
know that.
old some of them some of
Wow.
them are, which is
Now,
good.
I wonder if any were intended for a Hall and Oates album because I remember even like 3 or 4 years ago hearing Daryl in some interview saying that he had been working on stuff with the hope for a Hall and Oates album, but at the time John wasn't interested in it. But who knows? It doesn't really
Who
matter.
knows? I
Yeah,
suspect no,
that's what I'm
but
suspecting too, since he was working with Dave Stewart on it.
yeah, because he is basically now, raised Dave Stewart to the rafters here and said pretty much, he goes, this has been my real partner for a long time now.
Yeah.
And he's not made a secret of how he's felt about Dave. And
For
that and
those who
that's
don't know,
great.
they go back to the '80s with the Three Hearts album.
Yeah, before, yeah, and
Dreamtime.
even before a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
They had made friends, and once when Daryl moved to England and had his house there, well, he still does, and he got to know him there earlier on. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
they've been friends for quite a
Nice.
long time.
But yeah, so that I think the whole world's better. Great, awesome song. that had been released as a single as well. So if you, I don't know, I suggest people just check out the whole album, not just that song, but at least check out that
Right,
song.
right,
The
right.
next track is one I like a lot too, called "Too Much Information." I especially love the background vocals on this. I think that they're really good.
Yeah, yeah, very soulful, groovy tune. I
Yeah,
mean,
totally.
kind of well produced. And has a great groove to it. Uh, you know, it also though had like a bit of Dave's hand on the Three Hearts album. It sort of had a little bit of that feel to it in a way too.
Hmm.
Where it kind of had um that element to it. It felt like to me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one a lot. And then the next track, this was, I think, the first single, Can't Say
First
No to
single.
You. And this, like The Whole World's Better, to me, I liked it instantly
Me too.
as soon as I heard it.
Get guest stars. It works. Okay.
Yeah.
Elvis Costello on this one with him. And guys, get guest stars. There's nothing wrong. It's 2024. Guest stars are a good thing,
I didn't know Elvis was on that one. I didn't know that.
Elvis Costello's on that. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
that's the
that.
one with
Okay.
him. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. He's the
And of
guest.
course, they're
He's the
touring together right now.
they're touring together right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Daryl has started to play that one live. He
Oh,
started to
okay.
play it live, but he doesn't bring Elvis out with it. But he has started playing it live. And the Daryl's house band is all you could tell they're all over this too. Because this sounds like a Daryl's house band
Hmm.
feel to it as well. And that band's like a jukebox. I mean, they can play anything. I mean, and make it sound good. And I love this song.
It's a great song.
It's really good song. His vocal is spot on. Oh, and if you separate the piano from it, and just listen to like the piano kind of on its own, it's very much like the piano from One on One.
Oh. Oh, I want to listen to that like as soon as we get off of this show.
Listen to it and see
Yeah.
if you can pick up on that too.
I
It's
can hear.
very clear in the
Yeah.
live version. So look up the latest live version on YouTube, okay?
Okay.
Because there are a couple. And if you listen to it live, especially towards the end, you can hear the elements of the one-on-one
Oh, how about
piano
that?
to it, which is the best part of one-on-one, as far as I'm
Oh,
concerned.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, that's really something. I want to just give a quick throwback here. We mentioned Elvis Costello, and that made me instantly think of the Elvis Costello song "The Only Flame in Town" from the
yeah.
'80s, which Daryl Hall sang. I
Daryl and
guess
Sarah, they're
background harmony, whatever you want to call it. But he was in the music video. It was so much fun. Folks, if you don't
yeah.
know that song, go to YouTube and look up that video. It's so much fun.
It there was a place in my hometown I grew up in, North Haven, that opened right around the same time, okay, as that came out, and it was clear it was the name of the place was chosen for that song, that the guy
Really?
who owned the place, like he called it the only game in town.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was a place where all the kids, and my brother's age, and I was already kind of a grown up, but my brother and his friends all hung out at what they called the game.
Okay.
But the full name of the place was the only game in town. And the only game in town just closed down, I'm going to say 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow. How
it
about
was
that?
it
That's
was
pretty
around
cool.
all this, yeah, it was around all this, and it opened like within months of only Flame in town.
Wow. Now
Yeah,
I'm anxious to listen to that song again, to listen for Elvis, because he's got a very distinctive voice. It's one of those
yeah, he
things
does.
where you might not realize it's him until you're told it's him.
It's
And for
him.
me, that was the case with, did you know he sang background on Squeeze's Tempted?
Yes,
I
I
didn't know
heard.
that for probably over 25 years. One of my
Who
favorite
no?
sons ever. And then
Right.
once someone told it to me, I'm like, of course that's Elvis Costello. I think it's Elvis and
Yeah.
somebody else pretty famous sang background on that. I can't
Um,
remember. Um,
well, Jules Holland was
Paul
on it. Well,
Young.
he was with Squeeze though. Paul Young was on it too.
Yeah, Paul. It was
Was
Paul Young and
Paul Young was
Costello
on it
singing
too, and
together on it.
Costello sang on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but boy, I tell you, man, you and I get talking. I can go down all these rabbit holes, all these music rabbit holes.
You know what it's like? You know what it's like? It's kind of like, when the punishment you used to get as a kid, like, okay, they give you a word and then you looked up the definition of the word and then you had to find a word in the definition and then you had to look up that word. Okay.
Yeah, it is like that.
That's you and me. No. But we
So,
enjoy it. It's not a punishment. Um,
and the next song is called "Rather Be a Fool."
rather be a fool.
A great slow song to me. I don't know, that one too, I think, has a similar sound to maybe some of the stuff you would have heard Daryl doing, even on the H&O albums in the 70s and 80s. Some of, like,
Hmm.
that kind of soulful.
Dropped it a notch, and yeah,
Yeah.
and a very very soulful vocal. I mean, his vocal, and it's good to see. It's really good to see him return to piano driven songs again.
I agree.
Really, that warms my heart. I seen him with the acoustic all those years. Well, he got really good at it and everything. Or even doing mandolin guitar or whatever. I mean, he got really good at it and everything. But Daryl Hall belongs behind a piano.
Yeah.
You know, and that I'm so glad to see that back.
Yeah, me
That
too.
warms my heart to see that coming back and him, that he's embraced playing piano big time on some of the songs here, which is great.
And isn't it wonderful? We're talking about how he's maybe in some ways, kind of embracing different parts of his past musically like that. And we said the same thing with John on his album that, maybe he's diving into the songwriting in a way that he hadn't in a very long time. And isn't that amazing at these two guys that are almost 80 and they're still, trying new things that may delve into like older parts of them, but they're just both so talented and both
Yeah,
still so very entertaining.
it's like what we were talking about before we went on. First of all, you couldn't ask for two more different albums, okay?
Yeah. Yeah,
And but
absolutely.
the thing was that it was that sound that came together that created something entirely different. Now, separately, maybe this is what it was supposed to sound like if you took each part and isolated it to itself. I think certainly in John's case it is. With Daryl's, I think it's a little more. I think it's a little more something that, yeah, he took bits and pieces of through the years that he's done, but he also, it seems like he created something in this that seems to me like it's a little more updated and a little more refreshed.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think if you isolated their worlds and put it, and if they had never met, eventually they would have probably sounded like the way they sound now.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Um, the next song on here is another one of my favorites. It's called "Rainbow Over the Graveyard," which
My favorite.
is it? I was gonna say I love it for the title alone. I mean, that is just such a fantastic title. But the music, the vocals, the lyrics, everything is top notch here.
Well, I dropped my scooter. I ride my scooter a lot in the graveyard, as
Oh,
you
do you?
probably saw me do it. You've seen me do it,
Oh,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. Of course I
Yeah,
have. Yes.
yeah.
Now that, yeah.
And you know what? It's like I've seen many a rainbow over the graveyard, and in there, because after a storm or whatever, and you see it. But what I love about this is it's so atmospheric,
Yeah.
and has that quiet storm feel to it, that I like. And this is the kind of this is the kind of stuff I look forward to in his albums, that when he
hmm
takes it down this path, what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really good.
I don't know, but I mean, even though I liked the last album, it's been like 13 years since it, and
Yeah.
I don't know. To be in some ways, this was kind of the Daryl Hall album I've been waiting for a long time. It's got so many great elements in it that I just love.
What have you done here, man? This is such a good album. I mean, it's like this.
Yeah,
I mean, I really, really like this. It's
yeah, me
like this
too.
is this is one I want to. I keep wanting to go back to, like, over and over.
Yeah,
It's just got so much wonderful,
it does,
wonderful
and
quality to it. I love this.
yeah, I just love it. And the next song is another really good one. Not the way I thought it was.
Yeah, I guess this is about his divorce. Different, uplifting, yet very melancholy at the same
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
it's-
Good effects,
yeah.
good words.
Yeah, the music in this
Amazing.
one is really
It's good.
exceptional. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't really know much about his personal life. I didn't even realize he had recently gone through a divorce. So I mean,
Well, it
it was a
was
while
really
back.
ugly. He went through a divorce, I guess, in around 2015,
Oh,
and
okay.
his ex committed suicide in 2019.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, he went through,
Wow.
and Daryl and her daughter I mean, Daryl had taken on a very parental role with her daughter and helped, raise her for a lot of years and everything. And then she became an adult, and she was actually participating. Actually, Amanda can be seen on a few of the earlier live at Daryl's houses, and along with her daughter.
Oh,
who added some vocals to some songs too,
oh, how about
and
that?
whatever. Yeah. So
Well,
yeah,
that's
they,
sad. I didn't know. I didn't really realize all that had gone on. That's
yeah,
heartbreaking.
yeah, it
And,
was
you
difficult.
mentioned Live at Daryl's house, and I nod and say, yeah, yeah, to a lot of that, but I don't really watch that the way that I should. I've only seen like clips. Is it still ongoing? I know it had stopped for a long time and then it came back, right?
He stopped and it came back. Yeah, I think he did like half a dozen new episodes this
Okay.
year. The new episodes were pretty good. He
Yeah,
had
I haven't seen it.
Robert,
I've seen the old stuff, but not the
yeah,
newer things.
yeah, he had Robert Fripp on. He had Howard Jones. Him and Howard Jones were great together.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just saw
Yeah,
that when I was on YouTube looking, and I
Lisa
found the video
Loeb.
for the
Yeah,
new
yeah,
song. I saw that come up.
yeah.
Wow.
And his episode with Fripp was so magnificent because there was a lot. They did a lot of sacred songs on it, and but not only that, but like the band and Daryl are getting into it so much that Fripp at a couple of points in the album just drops his hands by the guitar and smiles and just like looks
Wow.
so admiringly at Daryl because you know Bob wanted Daryl to be his vocalist
Yeah,
and
I
you
know.
know he wanted him to leave Hall and Oates years
Yeah.
ago and look at he just looked at him like you know he so admiringly of Daryl
Oh wow, I
and
love hearing that.
yeah,
I definitely want to check out that
check
episode.
out that episode. It's worth your time. All the live Adderalls are worth their time. They're, I mean, I occasionally, if I get in the mood for one, I go and play an episode or whatever. And they're all, you always hear something you like.
Excellent. I definitely will check out more of them.
Yeah. Yep.
And the next track is "Walking in Between the Raindrops." That's
Yeah.
another really good one. I like the chorus on that a lot. That's
Yeah.
one, the two that you mentioned cab driver earlier. I was kind of getting cab driver vibes. You
Thank
got that
you.
too?
It was the smooth jazz. It was the smooth
Yeah,
jazz song really of this. That is the most like a. I think this is one you'll find on that you're going to hear on the SJ station
I
somewhere
hope so.
along
I
the
hope
way.
so.
I do too. I think it's perfectly for them. And the guitar bridge in this is amazing. It's Dave playing it, I think, and it's fantastic.
It is fantastic. And I was happy to see those two together again because I really love the Three Hearts album. And
Apparently they've never been apart. Okay, I guess
yeah,
if you listen to Daryl, I mean they've never really been apart.
which is
So
awesome, which is
it's really
awesome.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dave Stewart, I think he's another one that's, I don't know if maybe if underrated is the right word, but everyone associates him with the Eurythmics, which how could you not? He was half of the Eurythmics, but he's worked with so many other musicians, such a talented songwriter and producer.
He's quiet. I mean, he
Yeah,
never, you never really, he's not kind of a limelight guy, I
yeah,
mean, I kind of think that through the years, you can't say it hurt him because the Eurythmics are amazing, but you never really saw him come out and speak in interviews and get in
yeah,
anybody's, camera face or anything like that. He always laid low.
yeah, exactly. Which I respect
I
and
respect it, sure,
yeah.
absolutely.
Um, why did I just mention this? Why you want to do that to my
Why
head?
do you want to do that to my
Yeah,
head? Yeah.
that's the second to last song. That's a
Second to
good song.
last, yeah.
Yeah, that's one
Um,
I need to play that one some more. That one
I'm with you. It's not my favorite.
yeah,
It's good. I
it's
mean,
good. Yeah,
but I don't really. I mean, I don't. I think I would put it ninth. Okay, in my list. Okay, I think it's
yeah,
just not. It just doesn't. Just wasn't my best. It wasn't my favorite of all of them.
and I think it's a case too. Maybe in this case, it's that it's nestled between so many other good songs that maybe
You could be right.
it
You
can't
could be
shine
right.
the way that because the next
Yeah.
song is one of my favorites on there, and that's the closing track. It's called "Break It Down to the Real Thing."
How good is that song?
It's
Right?
so good.
It's just so smooth and uplifting and
Yeah,
groovy. It's 60-ish. It's got some 60s feel to it. And a little bit of 70. Like you could feel like Parliament being involved, somebody like that.
yeah.
And you getting involved in it. It's just really, I don't know. It just had a great vibe to it.
I
Dave,
think it's great.
amazing job done with that
It
song
is
and
amazing.
and his voice on it is spot on
Yeah,
soulful, spot on
his voice
soulful.
is wonderful. It's
Did a
like I
good
said.
job. The voice is like you said. In fact, I think it's better in some ways than 50 years because it has that more mature feel to
Yeah,
it than it was say in 1970. Okay, I like the maturity
yeah,
of that, but the clearness and and the brightness of how it was this time, you know, just great, just
Yeah.
great. Preserved his voice real well.
Yeah, very, very well. And I don't know if you ever do this kind of thing, but sometimes I'll listen to an album and maybe think of like a different order for the songs. Like maybe I would have liked the album if things were arranged, a little bit differently. And with this
Well,
one,
that's what random is for. I mean,
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's like, but no, it was funny because I was thinking while listening to this that I wondered if maybe the album would have worked just as well, if not a smidge better, if like The Whole World's Better was the final song. Because, it's
sure,
kind of like a looking at the whole world being better with everybody singing, and maybe having
right.
Break It Down to the Real Thing being the opening track. Like you just reverse
Maybe,
those two.
maybe like remember how Do It for Love ended with with the new version of Love in a Dangerous Time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, which was
Sounded just like a Bonnie Raitt song,
which
but
is yeah, well it did, yeah, it did sound like a
anyway,
Bonnie
yeah.
Raitt song.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, but no, it John's feng shui version sounded very much like the Bonnie Raitt version.
Yes,
The
yes, yes.
Hall and Oates version, not so much.
Yeah, but I'm
Okay,
sorry. Please, you make that point that you were going to try to do before I
but
even interrupted you.
but the truth was it was like an much more upbeat and fun version of it, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
that ended the album on more of a even though it was kind of a negative song, it ended it up at very, like a positive spin,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I liked it like at the end, like at the last song on that,
I
it was
did
good.
too. I did too.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's a good John Oates song. I like
it
that.
really
What
is, yeah.
whether or not I know what I was alluding to, folks. So Dave and I used to see this conversation a lot in that Hall and Oates group we belonged to. Was that a lot of people said that they thought that song sounded similar to Bonnie Raitt's. Was it Nick of Time?
Just in the nick of
Nick of
time.
Time. The chorus, I think. Maybe people were bragging on it, but
Hey, we all rip
whatever.
each other
Yeah.
off. That's life.
Yeah. But I love Bonnie's song. I love that's a great
Yeah,
John Oates song. And
yeah, without a doubt.
yeah, but anyway, getting back to this one, I think you're right. I mean, I love how that ended that album, but um, I also love how Break It Down to the Real Thing ends this out. It's such a good song. I mean, how
It's
could
really good
I have
song.
no disappointment by suggesting the other
No,
potential
no,
version.
I could see, I see total sense in what you're saying, without a doubt.
Yeah, you said you've seen the set lists for these concerts that Daryl's been doing a little
It
bit.
looks, I mean, I think there's, let's see, he put out of Dreamtime and some one other song. The rest of it are Hall and Oates songs.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if he
So
was
far,
working The Whole World's Better because I could see that being a big sing along. Get the audience to
get
sing
the
along.
crowd into it, get some
Yeah,
hands
I could
clapping,
totally see that. Yeah,
make a good time out of that.
yeah,
I could see these songs like working their way into a fantastic set list. You know, I think that the I think that the notion, I think that the notion that older performers have is that, well, let's pony out the hits again because that's what the old folks paid to see,
yeah,
and hear. I think that that concept has to die someplace. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I mean, not, you know, I'm not saying don't play some, but I think somewhere along the way that feel that us people of the upper demographic only want to go and hear hits.
yeah,
Okay. I mean, first of all, any one of these songs could be a hit someplace at some point in time. Just because it's 2024 doesn't mean that they can't be. And you know what? I mean, I remember, going to see them in 2002 on one of the many shows I saw. And it was considered part of the Marigold Sky tour, but it really wasn't, because Do It for Love was about ready to come out in about 2 or 3 months. And the album and the single had already been out on adult contemporary
hmm
through most of 2002, had gone number one adult contemporary and the whole bit. And you know what? They broke that out, and they broke out songs from John's album, and they broke out songs from Daryl's album at the time. And you know what? The fans loved it.
yeah,
And you know what? Somewhere along the way, the whole idea that people only want to hear the paraded out hits all the time, I think that idea has got to kind of fall by the wayside, because you know what, when you look at an album like this, I want to hear 4 or 5 of these songs in a concert. I don't
yeah.
know about you.
Exactly. Now, I can see how, a casual fan who's at a show, might be disappointed if they don't hear the hits. I can certainly understand that. But to a
Well, I don't
degree,
think he's going to let them down. I mean, he's
well,
going to
no,
play
yeah,
them.
that's what I was
Yeah,
going to say
right.
next,
So,
is that, yeah.
as John lived to say a couple of times, shut up, will play your song, and you know what I mean? But it's the truth. I mean, you'll
Yeah.
get your song,
Yeah.
you'll hear it,
Yeah, exactly. But I think that sometimes it benefits an act too to maybe if they are going to, like, say, do a show mainly of deep cuts, to kind of let that be known to the audience maybe in advance. Because when I saw Daryl that one tour that I mentioned earlier, where some of my friends had been upset that they didn't hear a bunch of Hall and Oates songs, I knew going into it that he was concentrating on stuff from the solo albums, which at that point really his only big hit was Dreamtime. So I wasn't expecting to hear hit after hit after hit, and I was fine with that.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I know Springsteen will do the same kind of thing sometimes, where if he just does an acoustic tour, you're more likely to hear some of his more, quote unquote somber songs than like you're dancing in the dark and things like that. Sometimes I guess if bands are going to do that, maybe give a little heads up to the audience. Like, for example, I know that now I'm not crazy that they're doing this, but I had heard last year that the Pretenders were not going to do any of their big hits in concert anymore, or at least on this past tour, because Chrissy Hynde
Right.
was tired of doing them. But she at least put that out there, to let people know that, and which
What are
would,
you going to do?
yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
I mean, as
exactly,
far as I'm concerned, what I like is that some bands smartly have decided to do like the retro album tours where they go out and they are going to
yes,
play only the songs of a certain
yeah,
album,
mm-hmm,
back in the time that, maybe the fans, the true fans loved or what have you. And, and then they were going to play those songs. But, that if a casual fan went to those shows, you're going to hear maybe one or two songs, and after that, you're going to be lost. So maybe then, yeah, those would be like a show that maybe you might not want to pay a lot of money to go see.
yeah,
On the other hand, and as much as I love live shows, and I know you do too, um, for example, if Daryl and John had ever through the years decided to play an abandoned luncheonette live tour, I'll be
oh,
quite honest with you. I've heard every abandoned luncheonette song live,
mm-hmm,
okay, through the years. And you know what? They don't go together. It's weird, but
yeah,
there's something about the recorded version of Abandoned Luncheonette that hits home deeper than, say live, Laughing Boy or
yeah.
where it just doesn't, they don't work as
I
well.
agree with you. I heard some live stuff in the past 10 years, and I was excited to see that it was available to listen to, but I'm like, oh, I was disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, every time I look at you live, it's not that cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's all right, but
yeah,
I a bit as much as I love forever the song Abandoned Luncheonette, though and heard it and warmed my heart the first time I heard it live. I have heard Daryl do it live sometimes that I'm not fond of. And the original recorded version with me with his uncles singing in the background and a Reef's production and
mm-mm.
you know for some reason, that's what stays with me about these songs. Not to mention it was a great story, but the truth is that when you hear that song on the record, to me, it holds deeper in my heart for some reason, better than the live version does, and
Yeah.
that's rare for me. I mean,
No,
but
I get what you're saying, though. I've definitely had the same
yeah,
case where, I thought I might want to hear something live, and then when I did, I'm like, I'd rather just have the studio version.
I will let you down. Yeah,
Yeah. And but what yeah, I know we're going down all kinds of rabbit holes here, but I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
care. But I was going to say is that, you mentioned how acts can do their concerts and maybe dive into some of their deeper cuts and all that, and work in some hits, and sometimes that's absolutely perfectly fine because they're such good live performers. You think of someone like the Grateful Dead. They very rarely did the same show two times, two nights back to back.
never the same
Yeah.
show
I
twice.
think of I'm seeing Bob Dylan next week in concert. I'm going to a,
Bless your heart.
Willie Nelson's 4th of July concert in Philadelphia.
Sadly, Willie won't be there. I think, from what
Well,
I've
that's
heard.
that it's still up in the air right
Up
now,
in the
but
air.
yeah,
Good.
he was
We'll pray that he goes. That would be
we're going to
great to
pray
see
that he
him.
goes, and actually if he's not there I might try to get a refund. But anyway, because well, he's the main reason I'm going. But I like Dylan. But my point is that
Yeah,
I saw some of the set lists for Dylan from because they've already done a couple shows on this tour, and apparently this show he did over the weekend, I think like 80, 90% of it was songs from the 50s, well before he started recording. And then he threw in like maybe, maybe 10 of his own songs, but people loved it, and he's one of those
yeah,
guys that he puts on a good show. He's got a good band.
yeah.
And he's Bob Dylan. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, right. And
But
you know what? It's too bad if somebody doesn't like it. Okay,
yeah, and that's the
you laid your $400 down. Now shut up and listen.
yeah.
You
And
know.
I'll tell you, sometimes one of the most fun things for me at shows is maybe even seeing an artist that I don't know and being blown away by them. I got maybe know almost none of their songs. Lisa and I, Lisa's my wife, folks. We went to see Ben Platt last week. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I've heard of them.
Yeah,
I don't know any of the
yeah,
songs, but
he's
I've
an
heard of them.
actor. He's done a lot of stuff on
Yeah.
Broadway. He was in some of the Pitch Perfect movies, but we saw him and know his stuff very well, and he was fantastic. But his opening act was a singer named Brandy Clark, and she was
Now she
absolutely
has. I've heard of.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she's wonderful. I went in there only knowing a couple of her songs that I learned just in the past couple of weeks because I was seeing her, but she blew me away. You see a good live performance, whether it's from a new performer or an old act, whether they're playing hits or non-hits. If they put on a good show, there's nothing like a great live show.
A good opener for any act sometimes will surprise you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I mean, I remember seeing Aldo Nova and Joan
Oh,
Jett open for
oh,
Daryl and John, and this is going back to the Private Eyes tour.
I was gonna say,
Um,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah, but Aldo Nova was it's always John. They were fantastic.
Oh, I bet they were. I
Okay,
saw Joan open for the
but
Police once, and she was amazing.
yeah, right. But we knew Joan a little bit. Obviously,
Hmm.
she was a lot of fun. But I'll tell you, everybody was totally blown away by Aldo. He
Wow,
was incredible,
wow.
absolutely incredible. And he's like a guy, I mean, like a guy you wouldn't even really think of
Yeah.
that, could totally wow you like that. But he did. He was fantastic.
Wow. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. So I hope to see Daryl in concert sometime again, maybe on one of his solo tours. I mean, maybe he'll make this, they like we said earlier, these guys have accepted the Hall and Oates is over. I was on their Wikipedia page earlier and it was kind of weird to actually read it. They was talking about the Christmas album that they did, saying it was their 18th and final
Final album, yeah.
yeah, and it's weird to
And
think that Hall and Oates have anything final anymore. But
yeah, when the sad thing is that I've come to the conclusion that when you go to Wikipedia and something is in the past tense,
mhm,
okay, it's over.
yeah,
And you know what I mean?
yeah,
When you're trying to check to see if somebody really passed away or not, and you go to the Wikipedia page and you see such and such was, and it's like
yeah,
that to me is like, yeah, it's real. And then now when you look at Daryl and Hall's page, that Daryl Hall and John Oates were an
yeah. I know
American
it's
pop,
weird. Yeah,
yeah, and not R, and
yeah,
it's kind of sad to see that
it
kind of thing.
is.
You know what I mean? But
Look,
it is what it is
it
now.
is. And going back to the analogy we started the show with, as if they were our parents breaking up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry they're not together anymore, but they both seem happier now. They both seem like, and I wish them well. They're both giving me some good gifts individually now.
I think I could speak for a lot of people and say that I think that if just that if the breakup had just gone a little bit to the point of, hey, we're not going to perform together anymore. We've decided that this is the end of the line. We're not going to make anything new. We're not going to tour together. We thank each other for the last 50 years and whatever. And it just kind of went like that.
Hmm.
I think everybody would have been, what more can we ask of them? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? We can't ask anything else of them. But to see it go out with a degree of animosity, I
yeah.
think was the real difficult part. I don't know, for me anyway,
And
was to
you heard
know
about
that
lawsuits and restraining orders and things like that, and
heartbreaking kind of thing that you're thinking that this, how long have they hated each other for it, you know? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
it's kind of funny because my wife and I talk about like our parents. I say Doodle. We both have a wife named Lisa,
Yeah.
but mine's never called Lisa. But when Doodle and I talk about our parents' divorces, okay, there's both our parents. We both came from semi-broken homes, and I mean, I was already kind of a grown up by then, but by its time mine, but hers, and she didn't even know her parents weren't getting along.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Like that
Wow.
kind of thing, where it was like
Yeah.
everything that was going wrong was behind closed doors, okay, and whatever. And she had no idea that anything was bad or anything like that. And that's kind of how it feels like with Daryl and John. It was like you really didn't know how the degree of anything they
Yeah.
were doing. Now you see my parents, okay, they fought on tour, okay. They fought at home, they fought at
Right.
restaurants, they fought
Yeah.
for the cycle, okay. I have an Italian mother who could start a fight with two anthills, all right. But then, but the truth. So when they broke up, it was kind of like, all right, I get
Right.
it. You
Yeah,
know
you
what I
get
mean?
it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but with Daryl, that kind of thing is like you didn't really realize the depth
Yeah.
of the animosity with them, and that was probably what I think hurts the most.
Yeah, I think so. And it was just so shocking. And people who aren't even like really big fans knew about it, and you'd see people talking online about it and just saying, what is the world coming to if you got this pair who had been
You
partners for
can't count
50
on
years?
no, you can't count on Hall and Oates anymore. What can you count on, right? But the good thing is we can count on Hall and
Yeah,
Oates. They're
exactly.
always right where we left them. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? They're
exactly.
they're you know they're still there. The music's still there, and we'll
Music's
hear
always
it
going to be there.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
and
the most successful duo ever. I
yeah,
mean,
it's like John loves to say that music is going to stand for a very, very long time, and he's 100% right. And
yeah,
we're always going to
absolutely.
have it, and we're going to have the memories, and
Yeah.
and you know what? We'll take that with us.
And I hope that each of them continues to put out as much solo music as they want
Me
to,
too, because
especially
these
given what
albums were really good,
these
and
albums are
and
really
I would
good.
and I would love to hear more like this in the future for
Yeah,
sure.
and folks, seriously, if you're a fan, I would recommend checking out both the albums. You're not going to be getting necessarily Man Eater and One on One and Rich Girl and stuff like that, but you're getting these guys who are still loving the process of making music, and you could tell.
Yeah, I hope anything we said here tonight makes people want to buy these records. Okay,
Yeah,
then anybody who listens to us talk quite, as far as I can see, quite enthusiastically about both of them,
yeah,
that that they make somebody want to go pick them up because it would be totally worth their time.
yeah, yeah. Definitely check out the music, and thanks for checking out our show today. I always enjoy having Dave on. Dave, we're going to have to, I don't know, find something else now that Hall and Oates are broken up. I'm sure that
Yeah,
will not be.
it's too bad it's too late to do Live Aid, but we have to put that together because we could have had a nice talk about Live
Well,
Aid,
we've only
but
been talking for an hour and 20, so you got another hour and
that's
20 we could
all.
talk.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Okay, folks. Well, the 39th anniversary of Live Aid will be happening was it July 12th, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, that'll be maybe some other. Maybe we'll do a 40th show next year.
We'll do a 40th show next year.
Okay,
That'll
that
be
sounds
that'll be
good. That
really
sounds
exciting.
good.
And
There
we'll
we go.
find we'll find another in the meantime, we'll find something else cool, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, again, I thank you so much for being a part of the Gotta Pop podcast today. I wanted to mention real quick, just a quick little bit of housekeeping here, is that I also have a new podcast I started that actually is going to be I don't know if it's going to debut before this episode or just shortly afterward, but it's all about books. I'll be talking to writers in some episodes. I'll be talking to fellow readers and book lovers in some episodes, and it's going to be called Buddies Book Buddies. So if you're a
Because
book
Buddy needs to be on the internet even more than he
I
already is.
do. I
Okay.
do. I just can't get enough of being on the internet. I'm gonna get the most out of my Zoom membership here that I'm
You
paying
should.
for.
You should.
But if you're a book lover, please be on the lookout for that. It'll be on Spotify, YouTube, all the same places that this show is. And Dave, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks,
I
buddy.
always have
Thanks
a
for
blast
watching,
talking with
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate being on. Love it.
I love it too. And folks, go check out those new albums from Daryl Hall and John Oates. I think you'll be really entertained by them. And thanks again for being a part of the show. Have a great day.